Hey everyone, welcome back to Haki Lessons, and today I'm making this video directly for anyone who isn't experienced with one or either of Bandai's other two main card games, so that's Dragon Ball Super and Digimon. Both of these games I do play, Dragon Ball being my number one game, and looking at what we've seen so far with the One Piece card game, I can see where there's a lot of similarities and lessons that Bandai are taking from their other two games and throwing into this one. I have noticed some people who are interested in the One Piece card game who don't have much experience with the other Bandai games. They seem to have come from either Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon or Magic or whatever. And so I see some common questions or statements about what they believe will happen based on their knowledge from their own card games, but coming from a Bandai game perspective, I can see where they're probably on the wrong track, or at the very least, what we've seen so far from other Bandai games, it doesn't seem likely what they're saying is right, or whatever, you know? So the first thing we'll talk about is multiple Luffy cards, right? So if you play Pokemon, for example, you can only run 4 copies of, let's say, Charmander in a deck. Doesn't matter if they're from different sets or whatever, you can only have 4 cards called Charmander. But if you play Dragon Ball, you could have a whole deck. Every single card could be a different kind of Goku, right? So, like, there are so many Goku cards in the Dragon Ball card game, and it doesn't matter, as long as you build the deck to the right, play set is 4 copies of a card, right? And there are so many different Gokus that have so many different abilities, costs, everything. The only thing that comes down to it is the number of the card. You can't have more than 4 copies of, let's say, set 15, Goku number 12 or whatever, The set number is what's important when it comes to how many of a character you can fit in there. Just jumping back on, after I recorded this and I was in the middle of editing this, someone brought this conversation up again, and it reminded me of something that I forgot to add when I originally recorded this. So, they're all getting bent out of shape with the idea of having a board full of Luffys or whatever, right? Like, their argument seems to be, like, if you have 2 cards with Luffy on the board, it's like there's clones of him. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. So, One Piece might not follow this template, but if you look at Goku cards in Dragon Ball, right, and there seem to be, depicting certain moments in the anime, or in the movies or whatever, and when I see a board full of Gokus, I don't see, as if he's done a Shadow Clone Jutsu and there's just Gokus everywhere. I see you attack with this Goku, and that's him doing a punch. You attack with this Goku, there's a Kamehameha. So it's more like having multiple copies of the same character on the board is him attacking more times. If that's how you want to imagine a card game, trying to think of it as if it's like an actual animated fight. That's just how I look at it. This guy I was talking to didn't seem to be coming from a Bandai point of view. He said he didn't like Dragon Ball Super and didn't really give it a fair go. I think he's coming from a Y Schwartz background, which I know nothing about. So I don't know what it's like over in Y Schwartz. But that is how I see Bandai games when you have a board full of multiple cards of the same character. So speaking of set numbers, if you do come from Pokemon, you might differentiate what set is what from symbols, which I've got to say is a garbage system. But the way Bandai does it, they will say BT01, which means set 1. You might have expansion pack 1, so that would be EX1, starter deck 1, ST01. So that is how you tell what number your card is. It is down the bottom right corner. One thing I saw today, actually, which is what got me ready to make this video, is first edition. I know when I used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, the cards would notify, they would say on it somewhere that this card is first edition, it's the first print. Bandai have been a bit flaky with this in the past. They never bothered with Dragon Ball, and recently they had to reprint set 10 and 11 because they were a bit short printed thanks to releasing right when COVID hit. So when the community specifically the community that likes to sell cards at a premium, got a little upset about that, Bandai relented and put a little RE down the bottom of the card to let you know that it's a reprint. I'm pretty sure Digimon cards do say it's the first print. Looking at this card I got in my hand now, there's a little 01 down the bottom where the set number is. So I think that means it's a first print. And there seems to be something similar on the One Piece cards we've seen so far. Of course, we haven't seen any cards in the flesh unless you were in Japan for the demo day. But there is a little 1 down next to the card number on these examples. So here's one for you. The rules released recently, and they seem to be a nice little mashup between Digimon and Dragon Ball Super. One thing that Digimon does differently than Dragon Ball, if a Digimon attacks an opponent's Digimon and that Digimon is stronger, so you might do this because they've blocked, then the attacking Digimon will die. But in Dragon Ball Super that doesn't happen. If you fail to kill them, then nothing happens. Unless they have Revenge, which is very similar to Retaliation on purple Digimon cards. When you attack an opponent's battle card or leader card, and your power is 15,000 and their power is 15,000, and they don't combo higher, you will win the battle and the leader will take a life, or if it's a battle card, the battle card will die. Whereas in Digimon, they'll crash into each other and both of them will die. In One Piece, it seems they will be going the route of Dragon Ball Super. So if you attack an opponent's character and you have the same attack and they don't manage to get the attack higher using Don cards or count cards or whatever, then their character card will die. One thing that has been driving speculation is what arcs will be in set 1. The set's called Romance Dawn, but so far we've seen barely anything that you would say is from right at the start of the series. We seem to have a lot of post-time skip stuff so far. The start of the deck definitely seems to be post-time skip. This is going to throw off what I'm about to say, but just the other day put out a Don Kree card, which is a character from East Blue, so right at the start. And then 2 days later they released a character from Wano, which is like the most current arc. Both of these cards are red, and both of them are missing all of their text, so we don't know if they're in the set or in the starter decks, but I'm assuming they're in the set. So what Dragon Ball Super card game does is each colour is in a different time period, basically. So you'll get 2 leaders per colour. Let's say in the latest set we have, in green, for example, we have 2 leaders. We have Champa and Beerus, and it's the Champa Tournament Saga. So you're sort of pitting the Beerus versus Champa battle that happens. Well, not they don't actually fight, but their warriors fight. So you're basically recreating that story arc in green, and then over in yellow we have Goku Black Saga. So we have one leader is Trunks and Vegeta, and the other is Zamasu, and we are recreating that arc over in yellow. So I'm assuming One Piece will probably do the same thing. Maybe we'll have, going off what we've seen, it's a little hard to see how it could be because we've got the Don Kree card and the dude from Wano. Maybe one red deck is from the East Blue and the other red deck is from Wano, and then maybe in another colour there'll be the opposing force for East Blue. So maybe we'll get a green Straw Hat deck that will be, maybe Sanji will be the leader or something like that. And then over in, I'm not up to Wano, so I can't speak too much about that. That brings me to another thing I wanted to talk about, and that is like factions being stuck to a colour. So a lot of people speculating perhaps like there'll be a white colour that will be Marines and like Pirates will be red, and anyway, I don't think that's how they'll do it. There is a Goku deck for every colour in Dragon Ball Super, right? Colours in Dragon Ball and in Digimon don't signify a faction or a type. They signify a playstyle, basically. So in Dragon Ball, green is sort of like hand destruction. Blue is energy manipulation. Red is aggro. Yellow is like disruption, resting your opponent's cards and stuff like that. And then in Digimon, like yellow in Digimon's recovery. Blue is also energy manipulation. Red is also aggro. These things seem to be stuck to the same kind of colours. So I think we'll get green Luffy's down the line. I think we'll get blue Luffy's down the line. This is just a general assumption that the rarities in the One Piece card game will work similar to how they work in Dragon Ball and in Digimon. Because Dragon Ball and Digimon basically do the same thing. You have commons, uncommons, rares, super rares, and then secret rares. And you also have SPR. Dragon Ball call them SPRs, and Digimon just call them alt arts, where they're basically a rarity level about one or two per box, an alt art that is much nicer looking, usually of an SR, of a super rare, but sometimes, especially in Dragon Ball, they'll give them to good cards that like deserve to be max rarity, like strong super combos or negates. But one thing that Digimon and Dragon Ball do differently from each other is secret rares. In Dragon Ball, you're likely to only get 2 secret rares per case, and they are limit 1 per deck. I would say usually, but it's 100% of the time so far, that a secret rare in Dragon Ball gets a keyword tag on it called Ultimate, and that keyword says you can only put 1 of these in your deck. In the early days in Dragon Ball, they were basically your best card, like your boss monster. That was unsustainable, so they've balanced them out a little bit more. They're not like the be-all, end-all, because otherwise, like a mate of mine who only plays Magic said when I told him about it, it's like, it sounds like pay to win. Digimon, however, do it a little bit differently. The secret rares in Digimon are 1 or 2 a box, but they're not guaranteed in a box. They take the place of an alt art, I believe. I don't buy enough Digimon product to totally sure that's how the pull rates work, but it's roughly. And you are not limit 1 secret rare per deck. They're basically super rares in a way. Like you can still run a playset of 4, but they are generally the better cards. They're stronger cards. As for what One Piece will do with secret rares, I'm not sure. I can see the argument either way of doing the Dragon Ball way or the Digimon way. It does feel very good in Dragon Ball when you manage to pull a secret rare, like you open a booster pack and there is a secret rare, and it feels good, I gotta tell you. And they are generally a good advantage. If you don't have a copy of the secret rare for the set, you might not find it as enjoyable, perhaps. Whereas Digimon, they're just glorified super rares, I guess. I suppose in a way they're easier to get than super rares because there'll be 1 or 2 in most boxes. Whereas there'll be some super rares that will be harder to get because you might buy a few boxes and not pull them at all. Okay, so the next thing is rotation. I do not like rotation. I have rage quit Pokemon because of rotation. And thankfully for me, neither Dragon Ball or Digimon do rotation. It's not to say that they won't in the future, but I really hope they won't. That's my personal opinion. And I don't think they will either, because they seem to have designed the game with not rotating in mind. Instead we have a ban list. So if anything is too oppressive, or occasionally there'll be a card that will be old and will suddenly break the game because there'll be new support and Bandai didn't really think that one through. So then they'll do an emergency ban on that. And that's, it's not a perfect system, but I'd rather that than all of my cards just losing their value completely. One thing that makes having all those old cards sitting in my folder ready to go worthwhile is they bring out legacy support every now and then. In anniversary boxes or in promos, they'll bring out something that helps an old card out. Like lately, in the tournament packs, there is a card that helps out a set 5 deck, which we're up to set 16, I think. So it's pretty old at this point. And they're just throwing that deck a bone. I like that. I like being able to like turn up with something completely janky. People won't even remember what it does. You catch them by surprise. I think, judging by what Bandai have done in the past, One Piece will follow the same route. There won't be rotation, but if need be, cards will be banned. So here's one for you. I think most card games do this the same way, but if you are new to card games completely, when you buy a starter deck, you'll need to buy 2 copies of that starter deck to get a playset of the starter deck exclusive cards. You'll most likely have a lot of cards in that starter deck that you only have 2 copies of, and a playset is 4. So that's how Bandai get you to waste your money. You buy 2 copies of the same deck. Promos is something Digimon are doing a little bit differently from Dragon Ball, and then Dragon Ball are sort of learning lessons from Digimon, and it's a whole thing. Because in the past, Dragon Ball Super has had issues where they'd release these bonkers promos and they'd be impossible to get, and you're like, oh, my deck doesn't even work if I don't have the promo. And then Digimon have sort of bounced around between having promos that are, good cards, promos that are just okay cards, and promos that are just alternative arts of old cards. And Dragon Ball have started doing this a little bit as well. There's a few old art promos in the tournament kits. I'm not sure where I land on this because I like opening a promo up and it being a good card. It feels bad when you open up the promo and it's just an old art and you're like, I don't want this. But at the same time, it feels very bad when you want to build a deck and you can't because that promo is impossible to get, and people know that and therefore charge a lot for it. Dragon Ball is different from Digimon in a key issue, and that is Dragon Ball isn't played in Japan. Digimon is, and we've had this whole catch-up issue where Digimon was out in Japan months and months before it finally came over to English-speaking countries. And One Piece is going to have the same problem. It's releasing in Japan in July, and unsure when we are getting it over here. But the problem is that they've been trying to get the English release up to date with Japan, and that means we don't get as much time between sets because they're trying to catch up just little by little. And it was very noticeable in the latest set 7. I feel like it only came out a month ago, and now set 8 it's pre-release this week. So that's pretty quick turnaround. Really hurts the wallet. It really hurts when you build a deck and you're like, all right, I'm ready to play this, and the next one's out and this deck is out of date. So I hope One Piece doesn't have this issue. I hope the English release isn't as far behind, and they don't try to force the issue on catching up, because it's not going to happen. Just don't even try. Okay, so Dragon Ball Super does a thing where there's not enough content. We're up to set 17. There's not enough content to have fresh characters and art and everything. So they pull from non-canon sources as well. We pull a lot from the Xenoverse games, and now we started pulling from Dragon Ball Heroes, which is an arcade game. And there's a few other bits and pieces here and there, like Android 21, which is from Fighter Z. I'm not sure about Digimon because, I watched Digimon when I was a kid, but I never went further than Season 2 or whatever, so I have no idea what the card, if the cards that are out currently are from canon sources or whatever. But One Piece has a large movie catalogue to draw from as well. They've already said that when the film Red comes out, there'll be a starter deck themed around that. So that'll be cool. That'll be where you get your Shanks deck, I assume. Hopefully. And there's plenty of other great canon and non-canon movies, TV specials. I don't know if any of them are considered canon, but I personally feel like 3 Days, 3 Years is canon. And what episode of Sabo is, obviously. And the one with the Foxy Pirates, that's a fun one to watch. And then there's One Piece film Gold, Stampede. So many sources to come from. And then there's video games like World Seeker, which is a game I really enjoyed. And then there's the new game coming out soon, which I forget the name. Odyssey? Yeah, Odyssey. They could make cards from that, for sure. So, will One Piece do multicolor? Looking at Dragon Ball Super and Digimon would make you say, yeah, they will, because both of those games have done it. Dragon Ball did it way back in Set 7, and it was like my favourite meta back in the multicolor days. And Digimon have just started it with Set 8, which is released this week. But the rules that we got the other week, we didn't get an official translation, so hard to say if they've been translated correctly, but what we see is the colours in your deck have to match the colour of your leader. To be honest, that makes a lot of sense to me because I don't know how you could get away with playing other colours when the way you play a card is using the Don system. The Don system doesn't seem to be tied to any colours, not that we've seen so far. So the only way to make the colour system a system is for it to be tied to something, and if that's your leader, then there you go. They could, down the line, do a multicolor leader, and that's how they let multicolor happen. Multicolor is a hard thing to do without breaking the game, because you get one color access to another color, and then it can become too strong. There was a lot of times where blue, yellow, and Dragon Ball was pretty damn good. Perhaps we need to learn more about the Don system, and maybe the Don cards do have color. So far, I've only seen that generic one. That might not even be a real card. That might just be an sample card for showing us the rules. Because it's a black and white card, maybe there will be coloured Don cards and you put the colour in your deck, and if you accidentally charge the wrong colour and you won't be able to play, like you have blue Dons and red cards in hand and then you won't be able to play your red cards. Not sure. But like I said, Dragon Ball, the multicolor meta was my favourite meta, so I do hope multicolor is a thing. Okay, one thing, when the game was first announced, there was a little screenshot of an app, and everyone was like, oh my god, there's an online client. Well, there isn't. That's just a tutorial. Digimon and Dragon Ball have both done it. When it's available, we'll be able to download it on the App Store and play a little sample of learning how the rules work with 2 starter decks. I wish they would do an online client, but I doubt it. I know Dragon Ball have had issues where other companies have owned video game licensing for it, and Bandai can only do what they can do. I think they, in theory, could do an online client with Digimon, but they're not. They did do a thing where they made something that looked like an online client, and that was meant to be for playing against people in other languages, and it turns out it's basically Tabletop Simulator. So don't get your hopes up for an online client, unfortunately. And then translations. In Dragon Ball, as you may know, let's look at Krillin. In English, he was localized to be called Krillin, but in Japanese, and I don't know how to pronounce this correctly, but it's like Kururin. I can't pronounce it, and that's why they localized it. Okay, in Digimon, a lot of people were calling DNA Digivolving Jogress, because I guess that's the Japanese word for it. And I watched season 2 of Digimon when I was growing up. They DNA Digivolved, and that's what it's called. So obviously when Set 8 launched just now, it's not called Jogress, it's called DNA Digivolving, because that's what it's been localized to. So we don't know if Don cards are going to be called Don cards. It doesn't really roll off the tongue in a comfortable way in English. The other thing is, though, from what it seems, I've seen Zoro has been written as Zolo. That's a thing that they do in the manga, where Viz translated everything, and they were worried that Zoro would be a copyright issue, so they called him Zolo. And there are a few other examples like that. Are we going to get the anime translations or the manga translations? I'm not sure. Hopefully the anime translations, because Zolo sounds dumb. Even if it says Zolo on the card, we're going to call him Zoro. Just like Higher Dragon in Dragon Ball, we call him Icarus, because that's who he is. One final thing. I mentioned it a couple times in passing during this video, but this game is kind of like a mashup between Dragon Ball Super and Digimon. So if you don't play either of those games, but you can't wait for the One Piece card game to come out, I recommend giving them a go. Because we have a few systems like you got 5 life, like Digimon, and then you get all those life down, and then you got to attack one more time. So that's like Digimon. And there's also effects when life gets taken. Some cards might have effects that will go off. That's like security effects in Digimon. And then your battling system is very similar to Dragon Ball. So yes, definitely would recommend giving both of those games a go because they're both fun. Alright guys, that will do it for today's video. If there are any other examples that I should be letting people know about and I haven't thought about, throw them in the comments and I'll make a follow-up to this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and hit subscribe for more One Piece content, and I'll see you on the next one.